He's dead.
Oh, no. What are we gonna do?
What if we use Doug as bait to get back to the boat? That's a really smart idea. Doug would have wanted this. He's alive. I think he checked his pulse. Right there. Doug! He's right behind you. What the hell is going on there? It's a long story. Run!
Anaconda is a brand new comedy adventure film that hit theaters this weekend. The movie is directed by Tom Gormican, and this is a film that is a spiritual remake / sequel to the original Anaconda film. Essentially, what's going on with this movie is that the real original Anaconda movie exists in this movie's universe the same way it exists in our universe as a film. And so you've got a couple of guys that want to remake Anaconda, and they go into the Amazon forest and run into a real anaconda. Now, I'll get into my synopsis for this movie here in a second, but I just wanted to touch on that because that information in and of itself was enough to pique my interest in this film originally. Then I found out who was cast in this film, and then I saw the trailers for this movie, and I got really excited. This was a movie I wanted to see on opening weekend, and so I went out to the theater today on December 26, 2025, a day some people would call Boxing Day, and I went to the theater and I watched Anaconda. So let's do the review.
Here we go.
That is one big pile of shit.
No, I shot him. Bullets in the fall killed him.
So Anaconda stars Jack Black as a character named Doug, and Doug is a guy that makes his living by making wedding videos, but he prefers to call them wedding films. You could tell that he has a lot of artistic ideas. He wants to make full-on movie trailers for people that are announcing their engagement or announcing their wedding date, when most of the time all these people want to do is maybe hug on camera, announce the date, tell people when and where they're getting married, and this bothers him because, again, he wants to be a filmmaker. Then we're introduced to Paul Rudd's character, and Paul Rudd's character's name is Griff, and when we're first introduced to him in this movie, he's getting fired off of a TV show set. Yeah, as it turns out, he's an out-of-work actor, doesn't get too many gigs. He was on a couple episodes of SWAT, and that kind of got him a little bit into the industry. But again, he's more down on his luck right now, doesn't really have any work going on. But one morning after a birthday party, both Doug, Griff, and a couple of their friends are sitting at a diner, and Griff lets everyone know that he actually owns the rights to the Anaconda franchise, and he wants to make an Anaconda film with his friends. Essentially, they'll go out into the Amazon and they'll film it guerrilla style, and then they'll take that movie back to Hollywood and they'll finally make it big. It takes a bit of convincing, but everybody finally goes along with this idea. They throw in their money, they throw in their vacation time from work, but once they get to the Amazon, that's when things start to go bad for this crew, because at first they lose the snake that they were going to use for the movie, and then they attract the attention of a real gigantic anaconda. And so now they've got this anaconda that's chasing them through the Amazon, and they also have these other people that are shooting at them for reasons that I'll leave out of this video. And so that's what's going on in this movie. They now have to finish their movie and get to safety. And that is the best synopsis that I can give you for Anaconda. If that sounds like a fun time, or you just want to see a giant snake on a big screen, well, this movie is currently playing in theaters and you can check it out there. Now, I am about to get into my positives and my negatives for Anaconda here in a second, but before I do that, if this is the first time you found my channel, well, I would love for you guys to hit that subscribe button, check out all the different content that I have, whether you like movie reviews, Blu-ray talk, or even ranked list videos. I've got a little bit of everything on my channel, and I'd love for you guys to check it out. All right, let's get into my positives and my negatives for Anaconda.
Now we die!
Anaconda!
It's okay, you're safe, I'm here! Holy
My first positive for this movie is something that I enjoyed, but I think I could have enjoyed it that much more had the film been rated R, and that's the comedy. Because the comedy worked for me in this movie. I thought Jack Black did a great job doing what only Jack Black can do. I thought Paul Rudd also did a great job doing what Paul Rudd can do, and the movie did make me laugh out loud at several different moments, so I wanted to make this a positive, but I also wanted to say that had this been rated R, had they really gone for it with some of the jokes, I think this could have been the funniest movie movie of the year. With that kind of star power, with this crazy story idea that they had about going into the Amazon and filming a new Anaconda movie, only to have an anaconda chase them, like the idea behind that is funny. And I think this could have been that much more funny had they just gone rated R with this, but they didn't. It's PG-13, and I'll still put it in my positives because, again, there were several moments where I did laugh out loud. One that's in the trailer, probably got the best laugh out of me in this movie, is a scene with Jack Black. They think he's dead. They want to get away from the anaconda, so they set him up as bait for the anaconda by taping a wild boar to his back and head, and then he wakes up. He's not actually dead. So he's running away from this anaconda. Then the wild boar wakes up, and as it wakes up, it's trying to bite him, and it was just a great moment. Very funny. So again, the comedy worked for me in this movie. I wish they had gone a little harder, but it's still a positive. My next positive is about Jack Black and Paul Rudd. Not saying that they're good actors or they're comedically very good with their timing, because we already know all of that, but I want to see more of them working together, because this was something I didn't know I needed, and I really enjoyed the two of them working together in this film. I believed that they were best friends for life. I enjoyed the interactions that they had together. They have to play some of this very serious, they have to play some of this very goofy, and they play all of that really well together. So again, I want more Jack Black and Paul Rudd in the future, and my positive for this movie is that putting them together kind of unlocked that for me. I want to see that again in the future. And my final positive for this movie is the anaconda itself. I really enjoyed watching this giant snake on the big screen. It's the biggest reason I would recommend this movie to people, is just getting to see that giant snake on the big screen. But that's me. I love watching big things, monsters, dinosaurs, in this case snakes, on the big screen. If you throw something big on the screen that shouldn't be that big, going after humans, well, I'm going to be there to check it out. And again, I think they treated the anaconda correctly in this film. I never felt like they were playing the anaconda itself for a laugh. It was always a very serious moment when the anaconda was on the screen, and that's the way they should have played it. So I had fun when the anaconda was on the screen, and I wanted to make that a positive. That'll do it for my positives. Now we move over to my negatives, and I have a couple of bigger negatives to talk about, but before I get to that, I have a couple of smaller things to touch on. The first one might not actually have been the movie's fault, so I'm going to throw it in the negatives column for now, but I'll need your help in that comment section. Let me know if your viewing of Anaconda was the same way. Essentially, what I'm talking about here is that the sides of the screen for at least the first half of the movie felt very blurry. Now, I saw it on an AMC XL screen, so maybe they just didn't have it framed correctly. So again, if it's the theater's fault, well, lesson learned on my part, but if it's not, if it's the movie, then it's definitely a negative, because there were so many scenes in the first half of this film that felt very blurry around the sides for no reason. And I completely understand, hey, we want to frame things in the center to be what you, the viewer, focus on, so we're going to blur things out from time to time, but it felt like every scene in the first half of this movie was very blurry on the sides. So again, help me out, let me know in the comment section. If it wasn't the movie, it was just my theater, well, it is what it is. And the other little negative I have is another thing I'd love your help on, and it is a scene between Paul Rudd's character of Griff and another character named Anna. At one point in the movie, they're having a heart-to-heart on the deck of a boat, and there are so many little cuts in that scene, and I couldn't help but notice them. What I mean by that is you'd have Paul Rudd's character framed in on the camera, and he'd have one expression on his face, and not even a split second later, he'd have a wildly different expression on his face, like they definitely cut and then went right back to it. And I don't know how they didn't catch that, but it happens multiple times with both characters in this one scene. I'm not saying the scene didn't work. They still were able to get across to me what they needed me, the viewer, to understand out of that scene, but I still caught all of those little cuts, and it really annoyed me, so I wanted to throw it in my negatives. That'll do it for my smaller gripes that I have for this movie, but moving on to some of my bigger negatives. My first big negative for this film is the character motivations going into the third act. And I'm mostly talking about the core group of friends in this film, the four people that put their time, their energy, their money, even their vacation days at work. They put all of that into this short film, and so they're really locked in together as a friend group. But when you get to the third act, because this movie is a comedy, they have to try and break that down just so they can get them all together again for the final couple scenes of this movie, and it feels very inconsistent. Specifically, the character motivations of both Doug and Griff going into the final act, that one really felt inconsistent, because those two were like locked in, best friends for life, and then Jack Black like kind of cuts out Paul Rudd's character, and you're like, well, that's very inconsistent with how you were acting, but they had to find a way to cause friction between these two so something would drive them apart so they could be brought back together. And that's the formula of comedies. I get that. But again, the motivations of those characters, was just very inconsistent. Then there's a side plot in this movie with some other characters, and those characters are chasing this friend group around the jungle, shooting at them at different times, and then they try to pull the rug out from under you and change your view of those people. And you're like, that doesn't really work for me either. You're doing all of this too last minute in the film. And adding to that messiness at the end of the film, my other big negative of this film is the story itself feeling a bit messy, because it's a cool idea at first, the idea of these friends going out into the jungle trying to shoot a movie only to be actually attacked by a giant anaconda. It's a cool concept in and of itself, but then they throw in these different story elements of these gold diggers or these people protecting the gold, and none of that was really necessary. You also have these cameos from previous actors and actresses from the previous Anaconda films that come into this movie, and their part in this movie also doesn't really need to be there. It's just there to pad the runtime. It's just there because, well, they were in the original Anaconda film, so we gotta have them in this movie, and that wasn't really necessary. And not only was it not necessary, but it also felt messy. It felt like we just did these things because we had to do these things. We didn't do these things because they were important to the overall story. Overall, I had an enjoyable time with this popcorn flick. Would I recommend it to people? Well, if you want to see a giant snake on the big screen, go see it while it's in theaters. If you're a big fan of Jack Black and Paul Rudd, then go check this out in theaters as well. Otherwise, you could probably wait for this one on streaming. But as always, guys, those are just my opinions because that's my review for Anaconda. Have you guys had a chance to see this film yet? If you have, let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know where we agree or disagree. And finally, guys, if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Alright guys, we got to the end of my Anaconda review, and I enjoyed going out the day after Christmas to see this film, but I do think it's one that probably should have released during the summer of 25. I don't know if the movie just wasn't done yet, or if the summer was too full, but I feel like this would have played better in like June or July. Everybody's out of school, the movie's rated PG-13, feel like you would have had more families going, but it's the first day of release. I have no idea how this is going to do at the box office. Maybe it's going to make crazy holiday money, and maybe that's what they were counting on. But with all that said, if you like this video and you want to check out any of the other content on my channel, well, I've got all of my best and worst of 2025 right there, and I've got all of my 2025 movie reviews right there.